Welcome, and thank you for joining Leadership, Leveraging Change to Make an Impact. My name is Jack Thiesing, and I will be your moderator today. I'd like to introduce you to today's speakers. Natalie Gilliam has over 20 years of consulting experience in healthcare, supply chain, and retail organizations. She has helped clients thrive through the transition from waterfall to agile, has supported organizational implementations, and has assisted several corporate integrations. Her background encompasses IT, data, and operational management. Mia Earhart has more than 12 years of experience guiding and building leaders in the logistics, supply chain, and healthcare service industries. Her background spans across business operations, account management, sales, and technology, leading her to comprehensive and strategic viewpoint to product and change management. If you have questions during the webinar, please type them into the Q&A feature. We will also have a Q&A session at the end. Also, both Natalie and Mia will be broadcasting with their webcams. Zoom has options to toggle how you view the presenters as they are going through the presentation. And now I'll turn things over to Natalie and Mia.
As we get started, what we want to do is ask you all to let us know, which is more important to team development, a leader or a manager? Question's going to pop up on your screen. Please take a few seconds, make a decision, and let us know.
Thank you to those I see answering the poll. I will share the results.
Outstanding. It looks like the majority of you believe that a leader is a very important player to team development. And I think you can tell from the title of this presentation that Mia and I agree. Mia?
So think about the people you work with today. Based on that, and based on what we found in the results, who do you think that most influential person on your team is actually going to be associated with, a leader or a manager? More than likely, the person who has the most influence on the teams around you is going to be a leader rather than a manager. So you're probably asking, okay, we may get this, but what is your definition of a leader? We believe a leader is someone who can create a vision and motivate others toward that vision while putting people first. This is also somebody who inspires, encourages, and influences people around them. Honestly, a leader can be anybody. This could be the team unto itself. And a leader is someone that needs to exist within organizations. Now, on the flip side, a leader is not controlling, task-based, focused on results only. That's traditionally what we would define as a manager. Now, reflecting back on our poll question, are you more of a leader or a manager in your day-to-day work? While you can be a leader and a manager, leadership is a role, not a title. And this can be handled by anybody who's able to fulfill those responsibilities. Leaders and leadership needs to exist in our organizations today. Without it, you'll probably notice and even feel very large gaps in the work around you. So simply find the person or the people who best fit this role and empower them to do it. Keep in mind, leaders are not bound by org charts we see in our organizations today. Anyone around you could be a leader, regardless of their position within the corporate structure. So the leaders we build today will mature the leaders of tomorrow. But how does an organization maintain that outlook in times of chaos? How does leadership change when making the journey from that time of chaos and turning it into actual growth? It's essentially the same. Good leaders will naturally just adapt, leverage, and transform chaos into positive growth. Good leaders typically can see and be a heartbeat to those around them. So watch them, support them, and continuously encourage people to keep bringing their very best. Most good leaders in times of chaos will just show up. Now, There is some slight variations during times of chaos that leaders need to be more aware of. There needs to be more of an emphasis on the people involved and how to simplify complexity within their work. Okay, let's be honest. People don't like change. Nobody really does. So when there's a lot of change going on around them, people may just shut down, get completely stressed out, probably even burn out. So if you focus on simplifying the work, you're not only going to keep productivity and morale high, you may end up increasing productivity in the long run, which will carry through to that growth. So, for example, I have a really big external painting project at my house. I have had this project planned out for almost 2 years now. Now, I'll be honest, have I actually done anything around it? No. I look at this project, I see it every single day. But amongst all of the other work I have to do and other tasks and responsibilities I have, it can feel too big, too time consuming, and too daunting sometimes. But all I really need to do is simplify it and get my mind space into a simplified viewpoint and actually just get it done. Looking back at it, it's really as simple as Mia, go buy the paint, wait for a beautiful day, and call in the family reinforcements and just get it done faster. That being said, the work life balance also needs to be reviewed since, again, things have changed. Help those around you by keeping an eye out for them. You may need to also adjust your own work life balance to lead at your best. Those around a good leader will watch, mirror, and follow a good leader through those times of change.
When it comes to those times of change, when those teams really need the leadership more than the management, the first thing you want to do is give your team a chance to breathe. Not every moment of the workday has to be a productive one. In fact, several studies have shown that people simply are not capable of being productive for 8 hours a day. If you accept that this is true, then it makes it a little bit easier to let the teams breathe, to give them a chance to vent, a chance to settle, honestly, a chance to decompress. If you give the team a firm and stable platform to work from, they won't feel guilty when they take that time. And they'll, in fact, be in a better position to pick up additional work, come up with better ideas, and continue on. You also want to take this time to redirect your one on ones for engagement. You don't really want to focus right now on asking those metrics driven questions. Remember, that's a manager. You want to start asking some meaningful questions. How are you? No, really, do you need to take some time off? Is your work life balance okay? I've been seeing you put in a lot of time on the weekends and after hours. Is that because you're trying to get work done that you can't get done during the workday? Or is that because you think you need to because I can't see you do your work? It's not always necessary. If you're putting in extra hours so you can get something done, then let's comp off next Friday so you don't have to be in the office. And if you're not in the office working, I don't want to see you online. It doesn't mean that the metrics aren't important. Metrics are really important. Um, but in chaos, in times of change, those metrics tend to be slightly less meaningful and they actually tend to tell a different story. You also do want to focus on your people development. Remind teams that they should take this time to keep up with their certifications. They should go get their CEUs. They should have some downtime in the development schedule so that they can have some team readings so they can all get on the same page. Right now is a really good time to have a team book club. It gives us a topic that's not work related, but is still development related to talk about. It's just as important to train and develop your people as it is to develop your overall deliverable as a company or to complete your project. Our people, our teams are really the best resources that we have. And you want to make sure that your resources have a chance to grow and thrive. Celebrate your wins. Don't dwell on the losses. It's key to celebrate your overachievers, your achievers. Heck, you know what? Even your underachievers need acknowledgement. Take the time to thank your team. Take the time to celebrate what they've done, how they've made it through these chaotic times, how they've continued to deliver even when they haven't been able to work together. You don't need to harp on failures and those not quite successes. Instead, celebrate those wins and let those not so great things pass to the wayside. It doesn't mean we don't acknowledge them, but we don't harp on them. We learn from everything we do, our successes and our not so successes. Sometimes today's missed deadline turns into tomorrow's excellent delivery. And don't forget to lead by example. Show up on your days on and check out on your days off. And for some of us, that is particularly hard to do. If you are always online, the team will be too. You want to set reasonable hours to work with and stick with them. You want to take your time off. But on the flip side of that, as a leader, you don't want to leave your team working with a deadline looming and you go out to dinner with your family. Stay with your team. Make sure that you help them problem solve, help them troubleshoot, and then when it's all over, remind them to start the next day an hour late. Um, one of the teams I work with routinely did nighttime deployments and then would try to come in first thing in the morning for stand up. It's not necessary. If you did a deployment until 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't need you on an 8 a.m. call. Remember to give them that chance to breathe. And just because people are currently working in their living spaces doesn't mean you have to treat it that way. This is not my office. This is also where I live. You want to make sure your teams have enough time to have some downtime as well. And I guess some of you are thinking, well, why do all these steps matter? What does this do for us in the long run? Well, right now, it's really key that time is relative. You do want to set those limits on working hours. Um, we do live and sleep and eat and play and raise our families all in the same place that we're working right now. So set those limits in your working hours. Be there for your families as much as you're there for your colleagues and work. You want to give yourself that break. You want to give your teams a chance to live. You don't want your teams to overwork themselves just because they can. You've got some people who you can't convince to ever take a day off. Those exist. I've met them. I might be them. But you still want to give them a chance to take that time off. If the team needs to hit a target deadline, commit to giving them breathing room afterwards. As leaders, we are very much aware that location is unimportant right now. Remember to enjoy the flexibility of mobility. Laptops, get this, are portable. That's really key and important to remember because you don't have to work from that half finished stuffy room in the basement, from that guest bedroom that you never really had a guest in. You don't have to work from the really uncomfortable dining room table all the time. It's okay to pick up, work from the backyard, from the patio, from a coffee shop, even from a park down the street. Sometimes that change in location gives you the boost and the energy you need to get through the next deliverable, the next ask, the next pandemic. You want to make sure that you give yourself that chance for mobility. And right now, since location is unimportant, remember when it's time to hire that you can hire the best person, not just for the job, but for the team, because it no longer matters if you find someone within your metro area. At this point, geographic location is also unimportant. Grow your team so that they can succeed, not just be there. And don't forget, your customer is still key. From everything else that has changed, your customer hasn't. You do want to still put a lot of focus from the team's perspective on your customer or your end user, even when you can't see them every day. You want to make sure that they are still successfully interacted with and that it's okay to lead your team really down this path when you can't see the customer, but not in a vacuum when they don't take feedback from the customer and users. You don't want to do that. You do want to make sure that you take the time to reach out to your customer in creative ways and allow some real life experiences and needs to drive kind of your next steps with the customer, especially in times of change. Because you have to remember, things change for our customers and users too. So for many of them, just like we weren't set up to go remote all of a sudden, they weren't set up to go remote. So you want to make sure that you adjust their expectations just like we adjust our expectations for our teams as things change. You want to pay attention to your customers' needs. And if you do that, they won't forget that you're on this journey together.
So now it's time to level set. We've talked about what we're looking at today. So let's look at some leadership best practices. And let's be honest, leadership best practices start with yourself. They start inward before you can even start focusing on anyone around you. I'm sure we probably all have heard, maybe not recently, but we've all heard that wonderful flight safety announcement. In the event of an emergency, the oxygen masks will appear from the overhead console. Secure the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping others around you. This is not a selfish act to focus inward first. It's honestly necessary. You won't be able to show up and help those around you successfully if you're not in a good space yourself. So, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Take time to invest in yourself, whether it's picking up a new hobby, taking a remote class, or something that just builds you personally. You will show up in a different way when you have a full tank of gas. Don't shut down and surrender to what always has been either. Stay curious. During times of change or chaos like we're in today is the best time to ask more questions. Question how you're approaching the work you're doing, what the team is doing. Ask questions of the people around you, work related or non. Explore the possibilities and just continue to stay curious. Lastly, remember to listen, and listen some more. Let's be honest, as Natalie put it, remote work isn't easy, and it can quickly create a really big divide with folks. You know those extroverts I'm talking about who need those people around them. Be prepared to listen more than you ever had. Practice and get feedback to keep those listening muscles in shape through this. Once you have balanced and centered yourself, then you can start focusing outward. This is where you should show up, be present and available. Be your authentic self and be present in your work and available, again, within your boundaries to those that need you. Remain passionate. Be invested and continue to drive forward. It's really easy to slip into habits that cause you to lose your spark. Don't let yourself or those around you lose that. Hang on to it. Also, don't micromanage. Let those around you be autonomous. Remember, you're not a manager, you're a leader. Focus on that leadership. Just because you may not see people doing the work doesn't mean they're not giving their best in that particular moment. Give them space to do what they need to do to bring their very best. Stay focused on that productivity and forward movement at any pace that might be, not the time management piece. Be decisive yet collaborative. It sounds like a little bit of a seesaw here, but own the outcomes and be a champion. Also, let those around you champion their work. Continue, however, to stay collaborative and promote collaboration with others around you. In a world where we've got a lot of change and things have become much more fluid, collaboration will keep everybody driving forward. I'm sure we all remember those collaborative brainstorming sessions you may have had where everybody in the room is compiling really awesome ideas. You can feel the energy and the innovation. Now, let me ask you, how many of those collaborative sessions died shortly after? Be ready to promote a decision and drive it forward through collaboration. Commit to those decisions as well and hold yourself and others accountable for those decisions. Lastly, deliver news. Any news, whether good, bad, or ugly, in a timely fashion. Don't let things stew. This goes for any time, but especially during times of chaos or change. Be sure to deliver those news quickly. Don't wait, but also make sure to do it through the proper channels. The last thing anyone wants to see is that constructive criticism email or IM that can be very quickly taken out of context. Use the proper channels, deliver the news as quickly and in a timely fashion as you can. With that, we want to ask you, did your view of leadership change after 2019?
Thank you to those that are responding. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. Okay, let's share the results.
All right. So it looks like a lot of people's viewpoints of leadership has changed since 2019. And there have been a lot of changes occurring all around us over the past few years. Natalie and I have learned a lot together since 2019 while being leaders in our own space. With that, we want to share. The teams we work with are and were constantly changing over the last couple years. They've been trying to find their new baseline as a team and also still being pushed to deliver at their extremely best. All while everything around them was changing and more turbulent. So Natalie and I found that leadership is required and always will be. Teams without invested leaders, especially during volatile time periods, need strong people to continue to encourage, partner, and challenge with. In times of chaos, there needs to be a calm in the storm to temper the ups and downs encountered throughout the day. Leaders are the perfect people to hold fast and guide those around them through all these changes. Keep in mind, we work with people first, then the deliverables. We are all human, and no one is perfect, even if they think they are. We are bound to make mistakes or have a bad day from time to time, and that's perfectly okay. Give grace to those around you and yourself, and remember that there are people behind work that we do every day. For those of you who have frequent our webinars, you probably have heard this concept already. We had another webinar on change management and the human side of change. This is the same concept. Overall, keep the humanity in the work we do, even more so during times of change. Next, adjust any working agreements and team boundaries to fit the new state of things. Working agreements really help define and set expectations and interactions within the team. These are created by the team, for the team. And good working agreements can help keep people focused and create really healthy boundaries as well. So think back to your elementary school days. You probably had that rules of the classroom poster hanging on the wall somewhere. That or your teacher drilled some rules into your head, but we'll leave that alone for now. Working agreements are those posters. It's exactly the same thing. It's how everyone on the team will show up and behave to remove distractions and keep focused on a common goal. For example, I facilitated a working agreement with attendees of a standing meeting I hosted. Once we created this working agreement, one, I made sure it was very clearly broadcasted to those coming. I gave the accountability back to those coming to this meeting. The agreement was that the meeting wouldn't start until after 5 minutes after the scheduled time. That would allow people passing time from previous meetings or to quickly use the restroom if they were running around or even hopping from phone call to phone call. But we would promptly start at 5 after. If you were late, we would continue and move on for the betterment of the group. The outcome from this working agreement was so positive, people ended up showing up on time, even early, and they were focused and ready for those meetings and fully prepared. Any old working agreements or team boundaries we may have from before may not apply anymore. So don't be afraid to take the time to readjust or even reset these expectations, or even set them if you haven't already. People will show up differently, which will change the dynamic around you. So be ready to adjust and adapt to these agreements. The key is here, be sure to set those expectations. Be kind and patient. We're going to keep telling you this through the entire webinar. Keeping to the point of keeping the humanity in the work, you just need to be kind. Give people the benefit of the doubt and be patient. As Natalie mentioned, not everyone has a great work from home setup or has the luxury of a nice quiet space to remain free of distractions or any background noise. Give them some patience, give them some flexibility, and just be kind. And last, continue to have fun. We're in a time that's really stressful for everyone. Bring some laughter and joy into your work, but don't force it. Natalie and I like to say if we can't have a good laugh during the workday, we're probably doing something wrong. I was with a team that decided to bring at least one terrible dad joke to their regular Friday meetings to wrap up the work week on a high note. Believe me, they were bad dad jokes. Another team wanted to bring up mistakes from the week, reflect, and laugh at the ones that were no brainers together. And in any way, shape, or form, they were having some fun. Bring that levity to times that are stressful or heavy. Just make sure it's within reason and at the right moment as well.
So you may be thinking, we've told you all of the things that we learned since 2019. We've told you some of the rules or best practices around being a leader, but how do you get started? This is something you want to do, and you're not really sure what steps to take immediately to make this happen. Well, luckily, we gave you a little bit of a roadmap. There are 3 steps you can take in the next week that will help improve your team morale and output. First things first, really seriously reevaluate your working agreement. Or if you don't have one, take the time to create one. Um, 2 of the teams I work with in the last year have kind of shifted to accommodate changes in our daycare and schooling schedules. One of the best outcomes from that, from this whole pandemic thing, is the fact that we don't actually just know our colleagues' children's and pets' names. We actually can know them by sight. We've interacted with them, and we kind of discovered how many of us are dog people, and we can start those meetings with a little bit of social time around our puppies. And it's great. But we did also update our working agreement to shift our collaboration hours to 9 to 3. I wanted to give our teams enough time to get started in the morning and enough time to go get their kids in the afternoon when they had to go get them. We used to have collaboration time from 8 to 4, and we just kind of said, no, we'll still be working outside of those hours, but we won't anticipate anyone needs to collaborate or be on a call outside of those hours. It just makes things a little bit easier as a working team to come up with that plan. And just an FYI, if you're really unfamiliar with how to establish a team working agreement, reach out to Digineer. We can help you with that. It's something that we are very good at, and it's something that we have a lot of experience with. We can help facilitate that conversation for you. Also, shift that accountability from yourself or from your management team to the actual team. When teams are accountable for the work that they are doing, for the deliverables that they are building, for the product that they own, it kind of goes from, yeah, it's work I'll get to no, this is work that's exciting. You want to shift that over to them. Make sure that they have ownership of the work that they're doing so that they stay engaged with the work they're doing. If someone's been micromanaging the team, is that because this person doesn't trust their own leadership style? If you're trusting your team and you're open with your team and you're having conversations with your team, do you really need to micromanage? Or is that just so you have something you can do because you haven't been collaborating with the team on the work that's being done? Do you just trust metrics over those conversations? Are you just trusting that number over the delivery? If so, you might want to check and see if you're leading or managing. There's nothing wrong with doing both, but right now we really want to focus on leading that team to the goal so that they own it and want it just as much as you do. And again, that accountability can be and should be addressed in your working agreement. And you should be updating that periodically as your teams change. Adapt boldly to this remote environment by making use of collaboration tools. This is kind of our new normal. Our current working dynamics may not change anytime soon. May look like we're on the downside of this pandemic, but realistically, several companies have kind of elected not to go back to full in-person teams. They've realized over the last year we can collaborate successfully when we're not co-located, and it's great. But if your team and your company's decided not to go back to full in-person, are you ready for this? Are you adaptable enough to make use of all of the tools that are available to you to make remote collaboration not only possible, but exciting and engaging? Have you had a chance to actually use those tools to shift up to digital engagement? Mia talked about those brainstorming sessions where everyone got into a room and started arguing about what are we going to do next and how do we grow this product. Did you forget you can do that online too? You actually have tools out there that allow you to whiteboard and brainstorm together. Multiple people can write on the whiteboard. I don't know about you guys, but I've tried to get multiple people to write on a whiteboard in a conference room, and that got ugly real quick. So you can make use of these digital tools to actually go further than you could before. On the daily, I make use of tools like WebEx so I can do video conferencing, Skype so I can have instant chatter with my teams, Mattermost so I can have instant chatter and share some files with my digital teams. I use Slack. I actually use Microsoft Teams as well. I'm using a lot of the word Teams. But the key statement here is all of those tools allow me to digitally engage with my teams, with or without the cameras on, with or without work attire on. The key statement here is you can still engage with those teams and get the most out of your engagement, even when it's digital. So I just want to make sure you know that. Also, it may be time to put the fun in the fundamentals of leadership. Remove some of those barriers that rob your people of enjoyment for their work. Give them something fun to do. Sometimes we're stuck in the QA cycle, and none of that's a lot of fun. You want to give them something to go for to achieve, give them challenges, have fun with it. One of the things that we've done is theme days, where it's tropical theme day and everybody has a background on their cameras when they're meeting together and they're all wearing Hawaiian shirts since we can't visit Hawaii right now. Sometimes you want to go with something tropical, or you want to do something like a team sports jersey day, and then we have our sports rivalries. And you just have to make sure if you're doing that, you give yourself a little bit of extra collaborating talking time in your sessions. Whatever you want to do, make sure that the team's into it. You can even send out swag for your team, especially if you have a team name. So all the collaborative teams that you work with can see you and address that, and it's more fun and they get to know you better. Do a game day. Take a slow day right after you finish a big deliverable and roll it out to a client, or a Friday afternoon when some people are kind of trying to take the day off anyway. Declare that not only is it a game day, but set up a tournament or a game that they can play against each other or collaboratively with each other. Fun ways you can do this online is something like a big old bingo tournament, or you can do a trivia tournament, or you can do, the March Madness final brackets. There's lots of different ways you can do this, but give your teams a chance to relax a little bit. That's that breathing space. That's that remembering that people are people and making this fun. And also, again, lunch. Remember lunch? That's the thing we used to do when we did not work from home. Yeah, remember to lead by example. If your entire team is constantly eating over their keyboard, they aren't taking the necessary breaks they need to actually reset their minds during the day. We as humans are not capable of being productive for 8 hours straight. You need that pause. You need to reset. You need to focus on the next task. And sometimes the best way to do that is to stop. Don't think about work, get something else done. That's a good time to get your team together for a lunch. You can do this with cameras on and microphones off, please, but still get the team together so they can eat, they can chat, and it doesn't have to be work related. As a matter of fact, I'd recommend it not be work related unless it's something like a book club that you got together for your group. You want to check in with your teams, check in on their families, their isolation, and all of these are tools to pay attention to their stress levels. You always want to be listening for a chance to help your teams. And sometimes that help is just giving them a laugh when they need one. And don't forget to be vulnerable yourself. You want to open up with your teams. I'm not saying anything that's not safe for work, but you don't want to be a stranger to your team. If they don't know you, they don't know they can come to you with issues. So you want to make sure you have that their teams all know that you're all in this together. In conclusion, We've kind of given you a lot of things to think about in terms of what leadership really is, why leadership really matters, how we can do this as a best practice. But the key statement here is a sign of a good leader is not how many followers you have, but how many leaders you create. And we're hoping this helps you take that to the next level. So that's the end of our presentation, but what we want to do is open this up for some Q&A. I'm sure that you all have some questions for us, and we'd love to answer them. As you can tell, Mia and I like to talk. So what we're going to do is have you type any of your questions into the Q&A feature. For most of you, it should be on the bottom of your screen. You open that back up, and our session host, Jack, will actually read your question out loud for you. All right?
All
Thank
right.
you so much, guys.
Thank you. You bet. We do have a couple questions.
Outstanding.
So you say that a leader can be anyone on the team, but then you mention one-on-ones, which indicates a manager. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Absolutely. One of the key things to think about when it comes to one-on-ones is that one-on-ones aren't necessarily a manager to a employee. They're often things that I do as a mentor with my mentees. I have one-on-ones with my colleagues to make sure we're in alignment with the same thing. A one-on-one is not it's not a managerial session where I'm checking in on your metrics. It's a touch point where I'm checking in with you. So it doesn't have to only be management level. As a matter of fact, I personally have one-on-ones with a team member who's above me in my organization, but who's not my leader directly tied to my project. We meet with each other to make sure we're still moving in the same direction. And I also check in with people and say things like, hey, are you feeling okay? Do you want to take a day off so I can pick up some work? And also, FYI, I'm taking the 21st off, so could you pick up my work? Those conversations happen either when you have a one-on-one that's not officially because you're management. Does that answer the question?
I think it does. Thank you. Another question. What is one way you can be vulnerable as a leader?
Yeah. So being vulnerable as a leader can be tough because leaders naturally want to lead. They want to show up. They want to make it look like they've got their act together. So being vulnerable is showing that you're human. Honestly, we tell you guys that, and we really encourage everybody to look at the humanity in the work we do. So that means yourself too. Again, as a good leader, you have to focus that inward perspective first, and then you can truly show up. So being vulnerable is opening up and sharing some of your experiences of what you're going on and what's going on today. With Natalie, I'll tell her every once in a while, hey, having an off day. I'm still here for you, but the brain might not be firing on all cylinders today. So just be open to sharing that with everybody else around you as well.
All right, a few more questions. How do you set boundaries with a manager who is passionate about coaching and mentoring, but may not be fit as a leader for you and your development goals?
One of the ways I've worked with that in the past is I've had the conversation with, I really enjoy having you as my manager, but I actually do have a mentor on the side who's helping me go down that path of what I want to do next in my career and my overall goals as a person. But you and I should totally talk about how we're going to get this product built out, or what are my next steps to promote inside the company. But please be aware, I do use other people outside of our organization as a mentor, specifically so I can see this from other points of view. It's a really easy way to take it away from, you don't really fit or mesh with my personality, and into, I have deliberately sought this help elsewhere. Mia, do you have anything to add? I know you kind of go down a different path with that.
I think it's the same actually as well. As a leader, your manager may not ever fit you. I've had some managers that may not have been the best blend with my personality. I'm a very extroverted, bubbly kind of person, and they were very serious, get to the point. I had to temper myself a little bit with how I engaged with them, but also gave them the feedback to say, hey, as Natalie said, we may have a little bit of a difference here, but and I still want your feedback and encouragement and what have you within the day-to-day workspace. But I have gone for additional mentorship outside, and that actually will show to your managers as well, even if it's somebody well above you, that you take the initiative to get what you need to be successful as well.
Excellent addition. Great.
Couple more questions. Why is it more important to have a leader in challenging times versus other times?
Go
So
for it, Mia.
it is actually important across all times. What we're trying to say is it's even more important to focus on growing those leaders around you in times of change because they are more people centric, people focused, bringing that humanity back into things. These people are going to be those pull in the ground that will hold on and really help you guys drive forward rather than letting things go. A good leader is going to speak up and give feedback back quicker than most other folks because they do feel confident in what they're doing and will empower folks around them to also speak up. So during every other time out there, also very important to have leaders, but especially during times of change, that leader can be that strong, steadfast person in the group.
And remember, your leaders at this point in time are the ones who adapt boldest, fastest. Things that are changing require adaptability. And we want to look to the people who are adaptable to help guide us through.
If as a leader, I'm supposed to be offline when it's my days off, how will I know if my people are online?
That's a trust thing. You have to know that your team is bringing their best and that when you're off, you have your own time. That's that boundary that you need to have as well for yourself. But you have to have faith in your team that they're going to continue to do what they need to do. And because we want people to be autonomous, you kind of just have to take that in and say, I trust my team. I know it's going to get done, and I'm not gone forever. I'm only off for that one afternoon or that one day or that one week. I'm replaceable just like everybody else. And honestly, they should be able to stand up and step up to the challenge that's ahead of them.
Now, if the flip side of that question is, if I'm not online all the time and my team is, how do I know? You know. You're getting emails from your team all hours of the day or night. You're seeing code drops once the code was supposed to be finished earlier in the day. You've got a person whose voice is unbelievably hoarse the next morning. Generally, those are clues that you have teammates who are working later and later than they should be. For me, the number one thing I use is to check and see when were updates made to our code repository, when are updates being made to our Jira, so I can see if I've got someone who's routinely working late hours. I want to have that conversation and say, hey, remember, no one's expecting you to work 24/7. As a matter of fact, not only is that not possible long term, but I'm going to need you to really dig in and focus on this in about 3 weeks. So if you want to slack off right now, this is the best time to do it. Don't keep burning the midnight oil. Okay. So that's the other side of that, is that's how you can see it when you're not doing it. You can do a quick visual check to see, for some weird reason, I've gotten 9 emails from Mia after 11 o'clock at night. That's just, wait a minute. Mia's been working extra hours. That's how you can tell.
It looks like maybe one final question. How do I shift accountability to the team?
Mia, this is your baby. Go for it.
The biggest thing is laying out those expectations. Hey, I have all of this work on my plate right now, and I could use some help. This is also a piece of that vulnerability aspect of showing your vulnerability. Show that you're human because you are. And just say, hey, I've got all of these things that need to be accomplished. I could really use some help here and start shifting that accountability to the team. It's not only just handing off that one piece, but from there, if you've got a really good team around you or other leaders around you for that matter, you're going to see people wanting to get involved and wanting to try new things and get a little shake up from their day to day. So more than likely they'll pick it up and they'll keep it. The other thing is just ask, hey, we set this agreement. You guys agreed to it, this working agreement, and you all agreed to it and created this. This is your responsibility to keep tabs on everyone else as well. If somebody's doing something weird, speak up. If somebody's doing something awesome, speak up. Give that team a voice and encourage it. Don't force them to, obviously, but give them that experience to be able in that space to actually come up and say, yeah, I got this. I can do this, or I want to try something new. They're probably already waiting for it.
And it doesn't happen overnight. This isn't one of those, all this accountability, this is yours now. A lot of it is giving them that taste of accountability. They own it. It was successful. They got praised for it. They want it again. It's making that cycle of accountability, success, praise, accountability, success, praise, accountability, not so success, but you know what? We talked about it. We made it better. Praise, that combination of those things cycling over and over and over and over, and they'll pick up more and more until they realize that if they're accountable for the entire process, they can do so much more. They can have so much more input. That's really how you get that shift there, is making it a very small bit with a repeatable process to see it happening over and over.
Great. Well, it looks like that's all the questions we have. So thank you, everybody. On behalf of Natalie and Mia, thank you for joining. This concludes our webinar. Please look for the recordings of our webinars on our YouTube channel and be sure to follow us on our social media channels. Also, if you do have any other questions, please send an email to info@digineer.com. Have a great day.
Thank you all.